Hello, and welcome back to Curlington Stories. If you're new here, welcome to you too. This story blew my mind in ways that are not easy to describe, and it's not a good thing. That is a bad thing for me saying that. And I'll just give you an idea. Have you ever seen people fight over adopting a child? Now, I know that might sound kind of like a good thing. It's like, it's great that both of these people really want to adopt this kid, but then they turn it into sour drama that should not have existed. And the truth is, only one person in this party is truly the culprit. And we'll get to that and more right now. Am I the asshole for adopting a kid my friend's sister had planned to adopt? Now, I know initially this probably sounds like some strange baby snatching scenario, but I'm sorry to burst your bubble, that's not what happened at all. It's been a couple years, but a post on here reminded me of it. We lost several friends over this, but still feel we were in the right. My wife and I adopted my niece Katie when she was 3, and when she was 6, we were looking to adopt another child. My wife's friend introduced us to her sister Jill, who was also trying to adopt. First off, let me just say how lovely this is that these people actually want to adopt children. It's more than just one person. It's like, how often do you meet someone that's like, yeah, I'm trying to adopt a kid too? It's pretty rare. I mean, a lot of kids in these orphanages and stuff don't ever see adoption, at least not promptly, and it's quite sad. But it's nice to see some women willing to pull each other's hair out over adopting a kid. In a way, it's bad in one way, good in another. Let's just put it that way. About 2 months into being friends with Jill, she found a boy she wanted to adopt, Henry, who was 7 at the time. Jill took Henry out for the day. My wife and I were taking Katie to the park, so we arranged to meet them there. Henry and Katie instantly got on. Henry was a great kid, but very hyper, presumably because he was excited to meet Jill. Jill commented to me that she hadn't been able to calm Henry down a whole morning and asked if we could watch him for a second while she took a breather. We agreed and spent the time talking to Henry, who seemed to fit in well with our existing family dynamic. Eventually, it was time for us all to leave, so we went our separate ways. Several weeks later, Jill called me to say that the adoption had been rejected by the agency. Apparently, Henry himself had refused it, so the agency had to decline. That is not a good sign. If the child himself was like, I'll pass on this one, sorry. I'll wait for the next candidate. You don't seem to be filling my expectations. Sorry, Jill. Better luck with the next kid. That is not a good sign. That indicates to me that Jill might have done things that the kid picked up on and realized was just not for him. And that doesn't mean that Jill is necessarily a bad parent, but clearly there's some characteristics about her that even a 7-year-old could see is not compatible with them. And honestly, there's already a hint of that with Jill being like exhausted with Henry and was like, can you watch him for a little bit? I need a breather. I can't do this. This kid's too much for me. I mean, she didn't say those words, but you can tell that's how she felt, if that's how she handed him off on the first day of interaction. Like, obviously, they were not a good match, and it's wonderful that Henry was able to pick up on that immediately. A few months after that, Jill found a different child she wanted to adopt and started the process. While we were invited to an open day at a local home where several prospective parents, families meet the kids, when we were there, we saw Henry. We're using the same agency as Jill, and it was a coincidence or luck, depending on how you look at it. Henry remembered us. We still got on great with him, and we ended up adopting him. From what Henry has said, he rejected Jill as she didn't have a lot of patience and wasn't willing to work with him, while we were a bit more flexible. I know this little 7-year-old didn't say that verbatim, but I love to picture him saying that verbatim. Can you imagine a little 7-year-old saying these exact words? Jill just didn't have a lot of patience and she wasn't willing to work with me. And I thought you guys were just a bit more flexible. Like, just imagine how articulate that kid had to be to say something like that if he did, but obviously I doubt it. But you never know. We didn't tell Jill because at this stage, we'd only ever met her twice. Once for coffee, and then the park. And while we'd had some contact with her over text/phone calls, we didn't know how she'd take this. We also didn't tell our friend, but after adopting Henry, we posted an updated family photo on social media, which a different friend shared. And that's how the first friend saw it. She told Jill that we'd adopted him, and Jill replied to our post that she'd considered us friends and we'd adopted her son out from under her. We clarified the timeline immediately, but our friends were shocked at us, and we received several messages saying that they couldn't believe we'd done that, and saying Henry should essentially be seen as off limits because he'd rejected Jill. I'm sorry. I didn't realize Henry was like somebody's high school boyfriend that like broke up with them, and then, you know, to your little friend group, you're like, oh, he's off limits because I dated him first. This is a child. Grow the fuck up. Some even calling us greedy because we already had my niece while Jill had no kids. Ah, yes. Now treating the child like a bank account. Oh, you greedy bitch, you. Wanting to adopt a kid and bring him into a loving home. You greedy, dastardly, harpy goblin. How could you? We felt that was absurd and ended up blocking most of them, but to this day, whenever we see any of them, they're still appalled that we adopted Henry, and even the people who supported us joke about us stealing other people's kids. Are we the asshole? I have a better question. Is that a fucking joke? How could you even, like, you know, I'm offended. I'm offended as the reader here to see that this person even asked the question, are they the asshole? Those greedy, maniacal scumbags adopting a kid who absolutely needed a loving home and resonated so well with you. How could you do that to Jill, who was promptly rejected by this child? The child wanted nothing to do with Jill, and you stole that kid right from underneath her, right from beneath her bosom. How could you? You sick bitch. All right, dropping the sarcasm. Obviously, this person is not the asshole. That is just a ridiculous thing to even consider. I don't even know how you can create this childhood high school drama out of an adult confrontation. It shouldn't even have been a confrontation, to be honest. They should have just be like, I'm so happy for Henry, and I'm so happy for you. It seems like Jill was just some kind of selfish witch who, for some reason, thought that Henry was like her property, her birthright or something. Henry is a child. Henry was not some kind of object. Henry wasn't some high school boyfriend that you dated. Now you're mad because one of your friends dated him too. This isn't what's happening here. And it's disappointing to see people who clearly have kindness in their heart say want to adopt these children, but behave like children themselves. It's baffling. And one thing I pointed out in a recent video of mine covering, you know, topics like this was that I've observed so many people siding with the person who is very clearly the asshole. And I don't get that. How is it that the families are always so deluded that they always want to side with the people who are very clearly in the wrong? It's baffling to me. Like, then you have to question, what kind of people are these original posters surrounding themselves by when this is the kind of reaction? Like, where did you find this person? These are like friendships from Temu. I don't get it. Like, they don't make any sense to me. I can't grasp this sort of ridiculousness, this sort of massive lapse in logic and understanding and simple human decency. It's striking, to say the least. But I've talked on and on and on enough already. Let's read a couple comments, and then I want to know what you guys think. So, not the asshole. The child did not want to live with her. She needed a breather the first day they met. You had no intentions of adopting him when that was Jill's plan. But how incredibly selfish of all the friends and Jill to not see the value in this child being adopted. They are literally saying that you should have left him in foster care because he denied Jill. That is appalling in itself. This person follows up with, also, Jill doesn't get to call dibs. Henry's a human being. If he got along fine with original poster's family, then it's good that they adopted him. Original poster did not steal anyone's kid. He didn't like Jill. Jill seemed to be impatient with him. He didn't want to be adopted, and he ended up with original poster. It's not like they adopted him while she was applying. They waited several months. It's not greedy to adopt a kid just because you adopted another one. Edit, greedy, not selfish. And this is another powerful comment. It makes me realize that people do not see children as human beings, but as objects they can bargain with. That is literally the life of a kid with divorced parents. One parent most of the time uses the child as a way to harm the other parent without realizing the damage that it brings to the kid. And another thing that I didn't mention already, but it's important to consider, is how would they have treated Henry had Jill adopted him? You know, they get exhausted on the first day. What about the next day and the next day and the next day and the next year and the next year and the next year? Now, obviously, the kid's going to mature as time goes on, but what about all that time in between, you know, where he can't be himself because you're too much for Jill? Obviously, he was not a good fit. They should have recognized that. And I don't understand why they made this about themselves when this is supposed to be about the child. But Jill wanted to make this about herself, make herself out to be a victim. Me, the most selfish potential parent I have seen on these Reddit threads so far. Let me just say, I'm glad Henry didn't end up with her. Anyway, that's it for this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. If you did enjoy, feel free to like and subscribe button. Till next time.